The coffee shop went silent the moment the woman in the expensive coat spilled her drink on the floor and the manager screamed at her like she was nothing. Nobody in that room knew she could buy the entire building with a single phone call, and nobody knew that the tired man in the corner, wiping baby formula off his sleeve, was about to change both their lives forever. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet wisdom that changes strangers into family, hit that like button, drop a comment below, share this story with someone who needs it today, and subscribe to the channel for more tales of hope. Now, let's begin. Marcus Webb had exactly $6.40 in his wallet, a 2-year-old daughter named Ruby asleep in a stroller beside him, and a job interview in 40 minutes that he was already going to be late for because the bus had broken down. He ducked into Hazel and Bean, a small coffee shop on the corner of 5th and Union, just to let Ruby rest her eyes for a few minutes and to splash cold water on his face in the bathroom. He hadn't slept properly in 8 months, not since his wife Teresa had passed away in a car accident on a rain-slicked highway, leaving him alone with a baby who still cried for a mother who was never coming back. He worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to keep their small apartment and keep Ruby in diapers, and today, for the first time in weeks, he had a real shot at a stable position as a warehouse supervisor. He just needed to survive the next half hour without falling apart. That was when he heard the commotion. A woman in a long charcoal coat, maybe in her late 30s, had accidentally bumped a display tray and sent 2 ceramic mugs crashing to the tile floor, coffee splattering across her shoes. The shop's manager, a red-faced man named Dale, came storming out from behind the counter, and instead of asking if she was hurt, he began shouting at her in front of everyone, calling her clumsy, careless, telling her she'd have to pay for the damages and that people like her should watch where they were going. The woman, whose name was Vivian Cross, stood frozen, not out of fear, but out of a strange, hollow disbelief, because in her world, no one spoke to her that way anymore. No one had, in fact, in almost 15 years, not since she'd built her tech company from a garage into a billion-dollar empire. But none of that mattered here, because in this coffee shop, she was just a stranger in a coat, and Dale was still yelling. Marcus didn't think. He simply stood up, stepped between them, and told Dale, in a voice that was calm but unmistakably firm, that accidents happen to everyone, that broken mugs cost a few dollars and did not give him the right to humiliate a customer in public. Dale sputtered, told him to mind his own business, but Marcus held his ground, saying that he'd rather walk out and never come back than stand there and watch someone be treated like garbage over spilled coffee. Something in his voice, the exhaustion mixed with quiet conviction, made the whole shop go still. Dale backed down, muttered an apology that sounded more like a threat, and stormed back behind the counter. Vivian exhaled for what felt like the first time in minutes and turned to look at the man who had just defended her, a man who, she noticed, had a diaper bag over one shoulder and a sleeping toddler in a stroller that had clearly seen better days. She thanked him, and he simply shrugged it off, saying nobody deserves to be spoken to that way, before glancing at his watch and realizing with a jolt that he now had 18 minutes to get across town. Vivian saw the panic flash across his face and asked what was wrong, and Marcus, too tired to guard his pride anymore, admitted he had a job interview and no way to get there in time. Without hesitation, she said her car was outside, and insisted on driving him, brushing off his protests with the kind of quiet authority of someone used to solving problems quickly. In the car, Ruby woke up and began fussing, and Vivian, to Marcus's surprise, reached back and gently made silly faces until the little girl giggled, something Marcus hadn't seen much of since Teresa died. They talked during the ride, not about money or status, but about loss, because Vivian, it turned out, had lost her own younger brother years ago and understood grief in a way most strangers never could. By the time they reached the warehouse, something between them had shifted, not romance, not yet anything definable, just the rare recognition of decency meeting decency. Marcus got the job. 2 weeks later, Vivian showed up at his new workplace, not as a billionaire, but simply as Vivian, and offered him something he never expected, a position at her company's community outreach division, one that came with better pay, healthcare for Ruby, and flexible hours so he could actually be present for his daughter's life. When he finally learned who she truly was, he was stunned into silence, but Vivian just smiled and said that kindness doesn't ask what someone is worth before deciding to show up for them, and that he had shown up for her when it cost him nothing to walk away. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. It truly means the world and helps this channel keep telling stories like this one. And before we close, I have one small request. Please type "grateful" in the comments if you believe good people still exist in this world, because somewhere out there, someone needs that reminder today. Marcus and Ruby never went hungry again, and Vivian, for the first time in years, felt like she'd found something money could never buy, a friend who saw her as simply human. Sometimes the smallest act of standing up for a stranger writes the first page of the biggest chapter of your life.